welcome to Confused Reviews, where Cartoon Drawing reviews movies, and it only seems fitting to finish what I started by ending off the Jarvis trilogy by taking a look at Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6. The final chapter kinda killed off Jason for one sequel, and had a satisfying death for the mute serial killer, but the series made too much damn money and had too many fans to stop after a mere 4 movies. Coming after the mostly negative reaction of Part 5, fans were vocal and the studio listened, because instead of trying for a third time to make Tommy Jarvis the killer, they just said fuck it and brought Jason back.
Jason Voorhees is dead! His body was cremated. He's nothing but a handful of ash.
Never mind that. This time around, Tommy takes a role of a Dr. Loomis-like character who returns to Camp Crystal Lake, now named Forest Green, to stop Jason. Again. Even though he's kind of the one who unleashes him again. But we'll get into that. Also, Harry Manfredini returns to score the movie and does a kick-ass job, and it also has several songs by the musical genius known as Alice Cooper, including the iconic He's Back song, that was made specifically about Jason. You'll hear me mention it a lot in this review. And director Tom McLoughlin decided to have fun with this movie and make it, honestly, more of an action movie with some self-aware humor and some awesome horror scenes, and it's a pretty fucking cool blend. Alright, enough backstory. Let's just jump into the movie and see if Jason's return was justified and worth it, or if he should have stayed cremated and imitated by a paramedic. This is Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6. So the film begins with Tommy Jarvis, played by Thom Mathews, who was the third actor to play the man in the span of the 3 films, as well as Alan, played by Ron Pollio. The two are off on their quest to make sure Jason's really dead or some shit, and Tommy says this awesome line.
Jason belongs in hell, and I'm gonna see he gets there.
Heh. Too bad he won't. They also chat about the institution, and hey, that reminds me, didn't Tommy kill Pam? Or at least they set up that he did? Whatever. They tried to make him the killer twice, and that didn't happen, so fuck it. They venture through the cemetery until they find Jason's grave? Who the hell gave this guy a tombstone?
Okay, let's go. Wait a second.
You willingly came out here with shovels and his mask. You had to know that Tommy was gonna dig him up, didn't you? The two then do the exact same thing that Tommy dreamed about some other teens did at the beginning of Part 5, and dig up his casket and open it to find the maggot-covered corpse inside. And like I already said, didn't they say Jason was cremated?
His body was cremated. He's nothing but a handful of ash.
Well, they did, but who cares? Let's just get Jason back as the killer. Tommy starts having Vietnam flashbacks and angrily rips out a metal pole from a nearby fence and begins stabbing the undead fuck many, many times. He stabs him a bunch more and then says the exact same thing every serious film critic says about this franchise.
Yeah, fuck you, Jason.
And he leaves the spear to go get some gasoline when their party is soon interrupted by some good old movie lightning. But one measly bolt of 1.21 gigawatts isn't enough, so another strike follows moments later. Huh, you know that saying, lightning never strikes twice? Well, I guess that's a load of shit. At least in an 80s slasher movie. But that's all it takes for Jason to spring back to life, and he doesn't waste any time and begins attacking Tommy. But Tommy is pretty much used to this by now and continues carrying out his plan and splashes the zombie with gasoline and also lights a match, but the rain stops it. Because we all know, Zeus is Team Jason. Unfortunately, there can only be one survivor of the opening credits, and therefore Alan is killed in a Mortal Kombat-like way, and is thrown into Jason's grave. Tommy then realizes that this is only the first act, and gets the hell out of there. Good job, Tommy. Jason was dead, and you had to go and fuck with it. Idiot. Jason then masks up, and they imitated James Bond opening, which is actually one of the coolest things ever, and it totally sets up what kind of movie you're in for. A kick-ass, self-aware one. A whole decade before Scream did it. Tommy then rushes into the police station, and we meet Sheriff Garris, played by David Kagen. And then Tommy starts yelling and screaming about the recently resurrected serial killer and how he might kill a bunch of people or whatever. And then Tommy starts going for the sheriff's guns, and that obviously gets him thrown into the slammer by Deputy Rick, played by Vincent Gustafrio. Oh, and we also find out this bit of useful information.
But no one in Forest Green wants to be reminded of what that maniac did here. That's why we changed the name.
Yeah, they changed the name from Camp Crystal Lake to Forest Green because, well, Ocean Blue was already taken. But enough with, our main character, as we cut over to Elizabeth and Darren, played by Nancy McLoughlin and Tony Goldwyn. Fun fact, Nancy is actually the director's wife, and obviously landed the role for her superior acting. Obviously. But she does bring up the greatest piece of advice for someone in a horror movie.
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
It doesn't matter. Jason will catch you either way. The two try to escape, but Darren, being the complete moron he is, decides playing chicken with the big guy is a better idea, so Jason stabs their tire as retaliation. But Darren decides threatening the J-Man with a gun is a better idea.
Stay cool, you ain't Dirty Harry, now stop it.
No, but he is the bad guy from Ghost, so yeah, he's gonna die. And as expected, the cap gun does absolutely nothing to him, and Jason kills him. Jason also decides that Liz doesn't need a windshield where she's going, so for the hell of it, he smashes the fuck out of it. And as one last attempt to reason with the maniac, she decides giving him money will stop him. Liz, don't you know giving this guy money doesn't stop him, it instead makes him come back for sequel after sequel? How do you think there's 12 of these fucking movies? The next day, we return to the police station and find more characters. Megan, played by Jennifer Cooke, Paula, played by Carrie Noonan, Sissy, played by Renee Jones, and Court, played by Tom Fridley. What the fuck kind of name is Court? After Megan undresses Tommy with her eyes, the teens leave and we bounce over to the cemetery caretaker, Martin, played by Bob Larkin, who brings up an interesting question.
Why'd they have to go and dig up Jason?
Well, because they tried doing this concept with a different killer and everyone hated it. Oh, and money.
Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
Oh, yes, they do. Man, the writing in this movie is kick-ass. Anyways, back with the teens, we soon realize a sinister fate. There are actual kids at the camp now. Oh god, everyone knows there are two types of people you don't kill in horror movies, dogs and kids. So, we'll have to see how this pans out. Cutting over to one of the series' most entertaining scenes, we see a company's paintball retreat is soon attacked by Jason. I would name off their names, but he's already dead. Oh, and I love how this movie shows Jason slowly realizing how strong he is. Before anyone can even catch their breath, Jason performs a Deadpool and kills 3 people with a single machete swing. That's efficiency if I ever seen it. Back with our main man Tommy, instead of leaving town like the sheriff wanted, he speeds off to the cemetery to prove Jason's back, but finds the grave filled and the crazy Ralph substitute keeping quiet about the whole thing.
Does he think I'm a farthead?
I mean, I have nothing to say about that, I just think it's funny and I wanted to include it. Moving on. Back with the genius known as Court, he's teaching the youngins something.
Listen, you obviously don't know anything about Indians, okay? Probably none of you do. Look, here's a story. These are called Indian markers, okay?
We then cut to nighttime as Martin is getting hammered and Steven, played by Roger Rose, and Annette, played by Cynthia Kenya, are having the classic night picnic. Back with the drunk, he dies. See, Jason knew Martin could have recycled that bottle. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but Jason is strongly against people who don't recycle. So Jason is here to tell you, don't litter or you'll be dead as shit-er. Oh, and back with the 2 lovebirds, they get away safely and live long and happy lives. No, I'm just kidding, Jason kills them. Meanwhile at the camp, Sissy is explaining how to play the card game Camp Blood, based on our very own Jason Voorhees. I'd explain the rules to you, but she only explains half the damn game before one of the little asshats starts screaming. The kid responsible is Nancy, played by Courtney Vickery, who explains she had a bad dream. Huh. Name's Nancy, has nightmares, and no one believes her. Wonder who that's supposed to be a parody of. We then bounce over to a sex scene, which has no nudity. Well, this is actually the only Friday the 13th movie which has not one exposed female breast, which is a downside to most. Myself included. Jason, being the abstinence advocator he is, pulls the plug on their little party, and Court finds that the court has been attacked by a common dog, and him and Nikki, played by Darcy DeMoss, track their happy asses back inside. Court hauls out of there, rocking to some awesome Alice Cooper, Teenage Frankenstein to be exact, as Nikki is dragged into the bathroom by Jason, which sounds a lot creepier than it should. Jason, using his newly discovered Terminator strength, bashes her head into the wall, which creates an imprint in the wall. Awesome. Oh, and he stabs Court in the side of the head with a knife, which causes Walter White's RV to crash in an extremely cool way. Jason then emerges from the RV, and we cut back to Megan talking to her dad, and this happens.
Sheriff's office. Oh, I'm sorry. He can't come to the phone right now. He's in the can draining his lizard. May I take a message?
Weird. Megan's weird quips are then interrupted by a call from Rick informing the sheriff about Darren and Liz's bodies being found. If only they knew about the other people Jason's killed since then. That'd be quite the eye-opener. The sheriff leaves, and as Megan does the same thing every kid does when they're bored, she falls and has a conversation with Tommy and agrees to pick him up. Jason eventually makes it back to the camp, and meanwhile, with the sheriff, he assumes that Tommy is the one responsible because he is trying to stop Jason. Why does he refuse to believe Tommy's actually trying to help? Oh, right, because he's a cop in a horror movie. I almost forgot. Anyways, Sissy hears a noise from outside and decides pouring a lemon-lime drink on the culprit is a good idea. Jason only drinks mellow yellow. Thank you very much. Megan finds Tommy while listening to He's Back, which would make it the second time it's been heard so far, and they then turn into Fast and Furious 12 as they have a high-speed chase, until they're stopped by their dad. Oh, and it's also set to Hard Rock Summer by none other than Alice Cooper. Oh, and Tommy is handcuffed again and is still being blamed for all this as the sheriff is informed about the crashed RV, even though Megan tells her dad that Tommy was with her the whole time, but he still thinks it's bullshit and runs off. Oh, movie cops, you silly, silly people. Back with Paula and Nancy, well, Paula joins her friends as part of the body count. Okay, now that all the counselors besides Megan are dead, they then hatch a plan to get Tommy out of there, which just so happens to be that they kiss until Deputy Rick breaks it up and she can take his gun. Not a bad plan, actually. Tommy gets out and Rick is left in the cell. Megan! 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 The two then drive off to get supplies for the climax. Oh yeah, the camp is now just Jason and the kids. Oh boy. Jason soon realizes that they aren't murder material for at least a few more years, and he leaves them alone. The cops arrive again, and the sheriff notices that the cabin now looks like a Jackson Pollock painting. Another officer is searching by the lake for fish or some shit, and Jason shows off his Lee Christmas level knife throwing skills. Nancy also jump scares another cop just as Jason emerges to kill the guy and also show how, no, you can't kill Jason with bullets. Ever. Garrus is done with Jason's bullshit and goes after him armed with a shotgun. He shoots the brute once and takes him down for 1 second until he bounces back and just keeps getting shot. The sheriff then decides, fuck this, and runs off into the woods just as Tommy and Megan return to the camp. Oh, and unfortunately, Garrus is going to need to see a chiropractor after this encounter. Jason bursts through another door and a wall and almost kills Megan when Tommy intervenes.
Jason, come on! Come and get me! It's me you won't remember!
Jason walks right into the lake and out of sight, and Tommy decides, let's crank things up a notch, and pours a bunch of gas into the lake and sets it ablaze. This somehow flushes out Jason, and the two battle for a bit until Tommy finally gets the chain around his neck. But Jason won't go out that easily, so he Randy Orton elbow drops onto the boat, smashing it in two, and takes Tommy down with him. Jason then chokes Tommy until he's unconscious, but Meg runs out and tries to save Tommy. Jason also grabs her leg and almost defeats her too, so she turns on the boat's motor and slices his neck, which is actually a really cool Jason death. And just as you think Tommy's a goner, Megan resuscitates him and it's all over. For now. Oh, and Jason isn't actually dead. Another fun fact, the original ending for this movie was supposed to show Jason's father, Elias Voorhees, showing up, revealing that he's the one who's been covering up everything and making sure that both graves are safe and sound. And then the plan was to have Part 7 focus on that aspect as shown by these storyboards, which would have been fucking awesome, and I would have loved to see what Thom McLoughlin would have done with another installment and the storyline. But we'll probably never ever see it. And as our tale comes to a close for a third time, we hear this kick-ass tune. And that was Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6. And as polarizing as it is amongst fans, I love this movie. It concluded the Jarvis trilogy nicely, having Tommy finish what he started all those years ago in an epic showdown. And for being the 6th entry in the franchise, it still remains fresh, and that's due mostly to the awesome directing and writing from Tom McLoughlin, having many awesome and memorable moments and lines. That mixed with Alice Cooper's contribution to the soundtrack is awesome. The biggest flaw for me is the lack of good death scenes. Now, the triple decapitation kill is great, and the RV kills are good, but other than those, the kills are mostly tame and dialed back compared to the previous 5 films. Which is really unfortunate because I do really love this movie and wish the kills were on par with the others, especially the final chapter. Also, the new zombified Jason is totally badass. He moves like a trained assassin and is really menacing. But with Thom Mathews, Tommy Jarvis as our lead, it makes for a great finale to Tommy's battle with Jason and is a great entry in the series, and is definitely my second favorite, just behind the final chapter. And I do recommend it to any newcomers or fans who haven't seen it in a while, because it's really fucking good. I'm going to give Jason Lives Friday the 13th Part 6 an A, because it's great in almost every way, but not having the serious signature gory deaths does knock it down a bit. But again, I do highly recommend it. Whew, I'm glad Jason's dead. Oh, hell no. What the hell? Oh, shit. Now, stay dead. Oh, and I'm keeping this. I'm Confused Reviews. I just killed Jason again. And thanks for watching.